Okay, we're recording. So my name is Nolcha Fox. I am a poet, an author, and editor of 3 literary magazines because I'm an idiot. And I wanted to present today on some poetry submission strategies because in talking to other poets, I realized that my submission strategies are a little weird. So I thought it would be good for all of us to talk about what we do or could do. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the first screen up. If it is going to work, I may have to do another. You know what? If you'll excuse me a second, I need to do another window because this one decided it didn't like me. So let's try this again. It's frozen. So let me try this. I'm going to start the slideshow. Okay, there we go. Okay. So I don't know why it's doing what it's doing. Hopefully it will not be stupid on me. Okay, so first one thing I want to talk about is submission goals. And people have different reasons to submit. Some have several reasons. I know a lot of poets who want to get paid for their work. Some of them want the visibility. They want to be in top tier and mid-tier markets. Some people like to support university student-run journals. Some people like to support a specific demographic, like it could be disabled, feminist, I don't know, crazy people, whatever. Some people like me, I want to get published as quickly as possible. There are some people who also have a goal to hit a certain number of submissions or rejections or acceptances in a certain amount of time. You can also work with editors that you admire and people that you have a relationship with. Some people, like cheap me, only submit to no fee markets because I see no reason to be rejected and pay for it. Some people do it to win awards. And that's my dog, and you didn't hear her. For some people, there is a current event that something where there's an urgency to get it out. Maybe you're getting a book out. There she goes. Thank you. She's deaf and loud. Okay. So here's some of the things you might want to think about. If you're in it for the fame and the money, you'd want to submit to top tier journals and to paying journals. But you should consider your time, your money, and the breadth of journal publications. The thing to consider is what's your time worth? If you don't mind waiting for many months, it's great to submit to paying journals, top and mid-tier markets, and university student-run journals. I actually just had a piece that was published after a year by University Journal. If you're more like me and you want instant gratification, and you don't want to receive a sponsor after you die, I would suggest platforms like Medium or Substack, and journals like Medusa's Kitchen or Five Fleas or even Masticadoris, actually, with quick turnaround times. And you can stop me at any time and comment.
I have a question then, if you want to do that. You said about people have goals for submissions and rejections.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of people who want to hit 100, they want to submit 100 times. And with the idea that the more you submit, the more possibility you have of getting published.
Okay.
And they actually will set goals for rejections, for acceptance.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Barbara. Yeah. I'm
Oh,
done. Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay. What was I going to ask? So they submit 100 times a year, a month, a week?
It depends on their goals. I would say typically it's some for a year, because some people just don't submit that often.
Okay, okay, got it.
But you can always set your own goals. But I have heard of this, and I decided I was not going to be doing that.
I know some people who do submit quite widely and, often. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
And then I have one more question, if
Mhm.
anyone else, okay. The breadth of the journal. So you're talking about submitting to journals that have a wide distribution versus something that's more of a narrow distribution.
Well, it can be that. It could also be the breadth of types of pieces they like to publish.
Oh, okay. Okay. Their genre, they're kind of niche, you mean?
For example, Five Fleas, that's Robin Jacobson is the editor, and she takes micro poetry. She will take one sentence poetry, and that's all she does. If it's more than 10 lines, she won't take it.
Okay. So they're kind of audience focused.
Or I think in her case, it's also because that's what she likes to write.
Makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. So here's some considerations, and it may vary based on the submission guidelines. And by the way, as an editor, I would like to mention that it's really important to read the submission guidelines. Really, really important. And believe me, I've gotten people who've submitted without looking at the guidelines at all, and it was really obvious. So the first thing you want to might consider is, what is your money worth? Now, if you enjoy spending money, and I know poets who will do this, they submit to paying journals and top tier journals and to contests. I would suggest, if you prefer to be rejected and accepted for free, that you focus on no fee journals. But again, it depends on what you want. So I know you talked about this, Nancy, the depth or breadth of publications. Decide if you want to focus on publishing in journals where you've developed relationships with the editors, and sometimes that can increase your chances for getting published again. Now, you also might want to simply pour out as many submissions as possible to as many highly visible journals as possible, because it actually makes your bio look better, and you might increase your chances of becoming an editor or a reader for a literary magazine. Any questions?
The editor or a reader for a literary magazine, really?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
If you would want to do that, because I would imagine it could be very time consuming.
Yes, it can be, but I know people who became readers. Basically, there was a group of people who go through everything that's accepted, or I'm sorry, not everything accepted, sorry, everything submitted, and then they make the first pass on whether something should go on to the editors for consideration for publication.
Okay.
You consider the age in poetry years of the poet as to which way they ought to go?
I would say not typically.
So they could take any of these roads
Yes.
if they're a beginner?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I know people who actually, when they started writing and submitting poetry, they actually became readers. And it's a really great way to hone your craft when you're seeing how other people are writing.
And Nolcha,
Yeah.
can I add something to confirm what you were saying? In my case, you know, I've been submitting to, I've kind of been following these even before I knew these were possible strategies, but I ended up, you know, just through making connections, you know, and being seen online and creating relationships. That's how I became editor for Masticators USA, and then
Right.
and eventually through her connections with me, and then publishing in Masticators, Nolcha became editor for Chewers, which is another Masticators magazine. I haven't yet been asked to be a reader for a professional journal or anything. But it's all about making connections when you're publishing, because later, if you want to do a book, you've got a lot of connections already.
Right. Yes, you're right. A lot of times, the literary magazine websites will actually advertise for readers and for editors.
I'm a reader, an editor for Fine Lines, and that came about because I started submitting my work, and they liked what I did, and developed a connection with the founder, and now I'm a editor and reader, and I enjoy doing it. It can be kind of tedious at times, but I like reading all the variety of stuff people send in. Pretty interesting.
And it's a great way to also form relationships.
Well, you know, I've learned, I think through experience, editors are a microcosm of humanity itself. I mean, they're very diverse, and it's no telling. You know, like I have developed a working relationship with an editor that I like personally, who I feel likes me too, and he accepted poems from me early on, but has not accepted any in a good while. And I said, well, you know, that's his tastes. You know, I trust him to be objective about it, but also I keep in mind that other journals have accepted poems that he's rejected too.
Right.
But you know, very often, I mean, I submit a lot. For a while I was submitting, I mean, really compelling myself to submit to 3 journals a day, you know, 15 a week. And I'm not quite that rigid about it anymore, but I do get overall more rejections than acceptances, that I just say, well, that's part of the process, because very often I'll submit a poem and a month later revise the poem, and I'll look at what was rejected and said, yeah, I would have rejected that too. You know, I just have to try to be as objective myself about it, because I used to work with somebody. I mean, our offices were so close to each other, and for years I never realized what a good poet this person was. And her attitude was about journals in general. Oh, it's who you know, it's cronyism. Uh, and I really do not feel that that's the case at all. I think my friend was being a little bit cynical, and she's a very good poet too. I never knew it for so long because I never saw any of her poetry, which is odd because we worked together, you know, and usually we were swamped grading papers or complaining about students, you know, for 20 years.
Right.
Crazy. Yeah, and she's very good.
Well, I personally found that developing the relationships with the editors have been helpful. For instance, sometimes, like San Pilarski of the Piker Press, contacted me last year and said, you know, we're going to be doing a special on penguins. Why don't you send me some stuff? I would not have known that because he really doesn't advertise. I've had other editors where I've sent them something, they write me back, and this has happened several times. They say, we don't want to publish what you sent us, but do you have something else? And they have gone on to publish those things. And I also find that editors on Twitter and Facebook, they'll follow my publications and that aren't from their magazines, and they'll read them and like them. And so it's nice to have that support. So here,
I have a question about when they reject you and ask for something else. Are they specific about what they ask for when they ask for something else? I mean, what do you know? What do you give them other than what you just gave them?
Okay, for example, there was one magazine where they had a theme, and they decided that they didn't like that particular poem that I sent for the theme, but they were willing to take others on the same thing. It was about birdsong. So, yes, luckily I'd written some other pieces, so I was able to send them on, and I haven't heard back from the editor, so I'm hoping that it's Tiny Wren is the name of the literary magazine, and that is a micropoetry site. This coffee is working very, very slow. Okay, now, there are places to go to find out where you can submit. And I've listed them here. So Nancy, when you get the presentation, these links should be clickable. Of course, my favorite one is stalking your favorite poets. But that takes a lot of time, by the way. Because if you like their work, you can, and you see where they've been published, check those places and see if you can get published there too.
Nolcha?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best things that ever happened to me, I'm not sure how many years ago now, maybe 3 years, maybe 4, Duotrope. I mean, it's a wonderful resource, and I feel a little bit guilty, not terribly guilty, but a little, because I I rarely record acceptances, or I don't have the time. I get a little bit baffled by the technology for doing that. And I know they put up a notice to me about it. You know, it wasn't like a dire warning or anything, but you need to be doing this. And yeah, if it was easier to do, I would gladly do it. But you know, often it takes me like sometimes an hour to submit to 3 journals, you know, looking for them, getting the stuff together. And when I'm done with that, I'm tired, you know, and I got to do other things. But I really value Duotrope, and I don't want to get on their bad side. As a matter of fact, I think they're, you know, I live in New Mexico, and I think Duotrope is out of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay.
I use them pretty regular. I get their Wednesday emails because I subscribe to them, and that's where I often get a lot of when I share calls for submissions. They're usually from my Wednesday email from Duotrope, and
Okay.
but it's really, I do like the tracker, but I think the reason that they like people to use that tracker is because it gives them feedback on just how good journals are, you know,
Yeah.
what their acceptance rate is, and how fast they get back to you, that kind of stuff.
If somebody could show me how to use it.
Yeah.
That's just like I tried to I made a TikTok video last night, and I couldn't make it on TikTok. I had to make it on my phone and upload it. I was lucky I got it uploaded into TikTok, but I just have to, I hadn't used it in a while, and technology for me is very much a matter of use it or lose it. But
Yeah.
it's invaluable for getting published these days.
Mhm.
I rarely submit to journals that are just hard copy journals.
I agree. And I think that you do have a point that a lot of people are just simply not technology savvy.
Yeah.
So, and I think some of the submission engines that I've listed, they just assume people have a certain amount of technological expertise. I don't know. And I agree that, I mean, like Chill Subs, they have a tracker that you can use. And I found it really difficult. And I'm pretty decent, but I mean, the way it was set up, it was very kludgy.
I don't feel so bad now because I know you're a lot more technologically savvy than I, but I'm better than some people.
Yeah. Well, I've actually been running a challenge for Fine Lines. It's 30 poems in 30 days. And people have come to me and said, can you please post this for me on Facebook? So, I mean, there are just people go, oh, yeah, not doing this, don't get it. And I get that they don't get it.
Nolcha, can I mention something?
Sure.
So, yeah, matter of fact, somebody who is an editor emphasized this to me because I had been posting some poems on Facebook, that were not yet published, and she said, if you do that, it could basically disqualify me from submitting them to some magazines, and not all, but some of the journals say you can't do that. If you've done it, you can't submit it here.
Yes.
And I can understand that.
There has been a move to allow posting on social media. Some, like Rattle was, I think, the one who led the charge on this. They felt that just because it went out on social media didn't mean it was published. And quite frankly, there are a lot of people who aren't on social media. They'll never see it. But one of the reasons there are private Facebook groups, writing groups on Facebook is so you can post your poetry and nobody can say, hey, you know what, that's now out for the public.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why my group on there is kept private, because if people want to share their poems, they can without hopefully any consequence to them.
Right, exactly.
Now, I'll publish poems that I've already published in journals on a Facebook page now, mostly.
Yeah.
That's what I'll do.
Yeah, and that's fine. And again, that's why you have to read the submission guidelines for the literary magazines very carefully. For Chewers and Masticadores, the one that I'm editor for, I say perfectly fine. If something's been published somewhere else, don't care. I'll take it. Because I think it's important to be able to get out people's work as widely as possible.
Nolcha?
Yeah.
What about, and I'm sure everybody here encounters them, there are some journals that absolutely don't allow for simultaneous submissions. And that's one rule I always abide by, because the last thing I want is to get on the bad side of an editor or a
Yeah.
journal. And like, I know one journal that has been very good to me, Mad Swirl, it's called. And I know they don't allow, so anything I give Mad Swirl, I have to make a note to myself, don't send this anyplace else.
Right. And Mad Swirl takes a while to get back.
What's that?
I said Mad Swirl takes a while to get back.
They do, and Blaze Vox does too, which is another journal I like, but they take a long time. Rattle, I think takes a long time. I've never
Oh,
been published in Rattle, but they seem to take
either.
forever.
They do take forever. What is it? Poetry Journal? I believe that's the one. It's very popular. It's probably considered like a mid or high tier. Um, I didn't have to pay, but I paid in my time because it took 8 months before I got a rejection.
Where was this?
Uh, Poetry magazine.
Oh, poetry. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they must get swamped with the.
Yeah, I think Rattle does too. And I have not been published by them before, and I don't even bother to submit anymore because I want to be published.
I'm 75, pushing 76. I don't have 8 months to wait.
Right?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't feel motivated to submit anything to Rattle.
Yeah.
I
And
think sometimes it's almost better for me to submit to anthologies because the chances of getting accepted are much greater. And then I can just put that down. I did that. Okay, move on to the next thing.
right?
Yeah.
No, that is actually a very good strategy. I know I didn't mention it here.
What is the strategy again? I'm sorry.
To submit to anthologies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they come out all the time. People are looking for stuff. So
Yeah.
You know, that's good for me to know because is there a place like on Duotrope where you can see a list of anthologies, perhaps?
I actually belong to a Facebook group that is really good about publishing, when something's open. I can't remember the name of the group off the top of my head, but anyway, people just share in there all the time when there's anthologies and that going on. I don't know if Duotrope has anthologies listed on there as a rule. I haven't noticed it if they do.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've been on Submission Grinder. They might list anthologies. There is a no fee call for submissions, and that has a lot of anthologies in it. That's a Facebook group.
That might be the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
What's
that's
it called? What's it called again?
It's called No Fee Calls for Submission.
Oh, okay. I'll write that down.
Yeah,
I
I'm one of
post
the
when I
moderators.
post and when I do an anthology, and I often get people asking, "What does it pay? Does it pay?" And I'm like, "No."
No, you're making your mother happy. Okay, just that's a payment.
I get that question every time, and usually a few times. I'm like, no, it doesn't. I mean, I'll say right on there, no payment. But
Right. Well, I do have to say that I belong to a poetry group that where a lot of the people, they will only submit to paying literary magazines.
yeah, that's their choice.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be for me, but I paid recently to have a manuscript read and they took my money and rejected the manuscript, but I
Oh,
usually won't even pay a fee to get a manuscript read.
Well, okay, first, did they offer you any kind of feedback on that for that money? I would hope they would offer you feedback on why they rejected you for that.
A brief comment.
Ugh, brief comment. And
I just figured I took my chances.
yeah. And I think that kind of harkens back to the early days of self-publishing. If you were a self-published author, you were kind of like the ugly stepchild of the publishing industry, where, if you were a traditionally published author, you were a peer. So
right.
it's still kind of like that mindset of, that's kind of the old school way of doing it, maybe. And they feel like that's how they still have to do it instead of
Right.
seeing opportunities in the free submissions. I think it's a mindset, psychology.
Well, I have seen one really interesting strategy. And this was actually done by the man who's our current president of our WYO Poets, which is the state poetry society. And he posted all of his poems on Facebook, and he also did videos of him reading on Facebook. People wanted his poems in a book, and he ended up being one of the top selling Amazon authors for a while. So he didn't submit to literary magazines. He just did everything on Facebook.
And so the book got published?
Oh, several books. Yes,
Wow.
The rules are made to be broken.
exactly.
Mhm.
So I wanted to talk about how to decide if a journal is the right one for you to submit to. So some of the questions you might want to ask is, do you like the aesthetic of the literary magazine? Do you like the way it presents itself online? Is the site professionally done and current? That one might be a little bit harder. There are lots of website generators or whatever, there's that actually make it very easy to look good. So you have to try pretty hard as a literary magazine to look really bad. If there are menus, and not all of them have menus, are they easy to navigate? Because again, a lot of poets they write, they don't do they don't do technology. Now here's one that's tricky, I find tricky. Do they publish the type and style of your poetry? It's a good
Exactly.
idea to read back issues if you can,
Mhm.
or if they have poems published online. But I have to tell you, I have looked at back issues. I have looked at what's published. I think that my poetry works for that. This is what I do, and got rejected. Don't know why. And I had those poems published elsewhere. Another thing to look at is the submission guidelines. I think I said that. If they're really, really hard, don't do it. It's
Yeah.
not, it really isn't.
Oh, some of them are incredible. I mean, so it's like a labyrinth with some of them.
Yeah, they want your blood type, they want everything.
Crazy, yeah. You know, also there's one for Blaze Vox. His big thing there is it's pretty much a one person. His name's Jeffrey Gotza, and he says it mustn't suck. That's the goal. I love this. Oh, it mustn't suck. Okay.
I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, one of the things you should also check, I didn't write it here, on the submission guidelines, you should check the rights. Do the rights revert back to you? Do they ever take your rights?
Oh,
There was Red Fez. I think that they're gone now, but they kept rights for 5 years. So I never submitted to them.
wow.
And just
An
exactly what the
anthology
right
like
meaning. Sorry, I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
There's an anthology like that I submitted to that didn't go for 5 years, but they went for like 6 months. But it was because it was a really prestigious publisher. I went ahead and took that, and I just gave them it's kind of like I felt like I just gave them my poem, and in another year I could do something with it. And so they published it, and a year later I published it myself in my book and got their credit. So it all worked out.
Right.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right. There's, what if you want to do something else? And one of the questions that have been coming up, and I haven't really seen a good response to it, is if you read your poems online, is that considered to be published?
Yeah. I don't know.
Never
That's
thought about that. I
that's what
wouldn't.
several poets I know think.
Right.
Yeah, so I was trying I was doing some open mics just during the pandemic, just not even recording them or anything, but some people wouldn't come if I recorded them. You know, they wouldn't read their poetry because then it would be recorded and they would say published, even though it was very informal.
Yeah, like I said, that's a very unresolved issue. I don't know what people are going to say, because with all the new technology that's out and the ways you can get your poetry out, what it means to be published, I think, is changing. Now, the last thing to think about is, would you be proud to share what has been published with your friends, with your family, and with the poetry community? And I actually laughed when I wrote this one, because before I started writing poetry, I was writing short stories. And I had one that was accepted by this magazine that specialized in like people who dress up like animals. And it has like sort of a sexual overtone. And I was going, oh my God, they accepted my story. This is so wonderful. And then when I looked into it more, I was thinking, I don't think I'd want to tell anybody I was published in this. So I withdrew my story.
Wow.
That is kind of funny. You do need to know, well, eyes wide open, people, eyes wide open.
So if urgency is important because of the topic of your poem, say you've written a poem about a shooting, or to support an upcoming reading you're doing for a new book, you need to check Duotrope or the submission guidelines for the average turnaround time, if they actually post that. All right. Now, if visibility is important, you should, and I have never done this, by the way, or I've only done a little bit of it, is to check the social media accounts for the number of followers and the frequency of activity. Sometimes actually this is good to do, because you might come across a literary magazine that sounds really good, but when you go and look, they haven't had any activity for months, sometimes for years.
Nolcha, doesn't Duotrope kind of give a good indication of that too? Or you can go to their site and just see, like, if they've got something, their most recent post was 2019, said, gee, nothing's going on there. I've seen that or encountered it.
And I have to tell you, I know of several literary magazines where the editor took a break, either because of personal issues, just because they were burned out and they wanted to focus on their own writing. And as a matter of fact, there was one one poetry site, and by the way, I love writing dark, and this literary magazine is called Dark Entries, and I had submitted a lot to the editor LM and in the past, and all of a sudden it's like everything stopped. So she actually contacted me. I don't know what was going on in her life. I really didn't want to ask, but she contacted me and said, hey, I'm open again. Will you submit to me? So even if it doesn't look like there's a lot of activity, do check, like, what was it? Whispers and Echoes, which does micropoetry. All of a sudden they stopped. But they had a notice on their website that they were going to be basically on vacation for some time.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I'll know of some, where they seem pretty prompt in their replies, and then all of a sudden, I can think of two of them right now. and where, gee, I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, like which ones?
Well, this one I've published in before, well, I published in both of them before. Divot is one, a journal called Divot, which is a relatively new journal, but they're pretty regular. And all of a sudden, I'm waiting and I'm waiting. Another one, 433, it's called, and the editor seems, for both of those, very personable people, but just haven't heard. They're still up on Duotrope, especially 433. It's been a while. And then there's another one out of Toronto, called Founders Favorites. And gee, I haven't seen or heard anything from, I could go back to their sites, of course, but to see if they published anything recently.
If you're on Twitter, you can actually do a search and see if they've posted anything. At least that before Twitter sort of kind of I don't know, Twitter has not been so great with the literary community there. I think a lot of people have been leaving. There hasn't been as much activity, but that is a good way to find out what's really going on. They may not post on their sites, but people talk about them. You might be able to find something on Facebook, not all the time. You could try Googling. Sometimes you can find stuff that way.
A lot of places closed down with the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if they had any kind of mailing expenses, I'm sure, sending out issues, the cost, and just supplies, getting supplies for the press, whatever.
And some people got sick and some editors died.
Yeah.
Like,
oh gosh, yeah.
Sure.
And it ain't over.
yep. Now, another thing you can think about is in determining whether a journal is right for you, is does it publish poets you admire?
Sure.
Although sometimes I think if they publish poets I admire, I probably won't get in because my stuff is too weird. But the other thing I like to do, by the way, and it's not on here, is new poetry journals, because the editors are hungry.
Yeah.
They're more open to new things. As a matter of fact, Lisa, I'm one of the moderators for the No Fee Call for Submission. And we just had one came in. It's a new poetry magazine. And so you might want to check that out.
It's a little more depressing to get rejected by a new one than one more, more established, but you got to take your chances.
Yeah, and the truth is that I think that there's a higher chance of getting published in a new magazine. You don't know what you're getting into because you don't know, they don't have a track record.
Sure.
But I think, and another thing that's been around, especially on Twitter, was how there are a lot of magazines who've come up that are run by people in high school or maybe in college, and they I actually was accepted for publication in one of those magazines. It was a great experience. But
I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
just saying the garden has a lot of anthologies coming up if people are interested in this. Some for women and some for both genders, all genders, I should say. And so keep that in mind. And of course, I do one every year for Prolific Pulse. So I'll be getting ready to announce the anthology for next year pretty soon.
I'm sorry, what was it called?
ProlificPulse.com.
Oh, really?
Website. It's my press. And I do an anthology every year, and I'll be announcing next year soon.
Okay, and you're going to be doing that on the Prolific Pulse Press Facebook page?
I will. I'll be announcing it there.
Pete, you might want to request to join the group.
Yeah, come join us.
What's the name of it again?
Prolific Pulse Press.
Oh, okay.
It's a Facebook group. We have a group and a page. If you join both of them, that'd be great too.
Nancy or Lisa, would you be willing to post in the chat the link to the garden? So Pete could look at maybe submitting to one of the anthologies that's open to both.
Not a lot of there, but we'll get it there.
Am I getting myself in trouble for this?
There's the Garden of Neuro. That's our page, and you're right. I should be posting those stuff there. And then Lisa, I'll grab yours too.
Great.
And also, also gardenofneuropublishing.com has the calls for submissions on there, and it'll tell you if it's for women only or if it's all genders. So I know there's some out there for all genders, Peter. So
Yeah. Okay, here's Lisa's Facebook page there. And
Thank
then
you.
let me grab that.
And Nancy and Lisa, I want to let you know that Pete's poetry is excellent.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Nolcha. I try my best.
One of the things that, from the standpoint of the recipient, and you probably see this too, Nolcha, because you receive things for journals, is to pay close attention to the criteria. If someone I asked for 3 poems and somebody sends me 10, I'm going to send them back and say, pick your best 3 and resubmit. If I ask for a cover letter and a bio, I want that to come with the poetry, that kind of stuff. And I send stuff back all the time, and if people really want to publish, they'll send it back to me correctly. So this is a lot of work for the recipient to have to see and go through all that. And it's kind of insulting in a way too, that you can't read the instructions. Not saying that anybody in this room does that, but I'm just saying in general, it's a frustration, and you're laughing because you probably already know what I'm talking about. Nolcha.
Oh yes, the first week that I was editor for Chewers and Masticadores, a man said, okay, I request 2 pieces max, because I have a life too. And this one guy sent me 7 pieces, and I said, did you read the submission guidelines? He said, no, you can just reject things. And I was going, I will probably reject everything.
Yeah, to blacklist people and say you're not gonna be on this, you're never going to publish here.
Right, pretty much.
And to be aware whether editors want an attached file or if they want the submission in the body of an email. I know that's important too, because I've been yelled at for getting it the wrong way or gently corrected at times.
Yeah, hopefully I don't get a reputation for yelling, but I will kindly ask them to resubmit in the proper form.
You know, I think I'm going to start doing this. I'm still pretty new at this.
Ronnie asked, what was the name of that new magazine we were talking about? The one you said just opened?
Oh, you know what? Let me if I'm at the end of this, I will stop sharing and get into my, yep, I'm done. Yes. Okay. So let me get out of my share. And hi, Ronnie. Let me go over here a second because I just had it. Let's see.
I thought I wrote it down. I'm like,
Yeah, let me see. Oh, of course it went away because I said it was okay. Okay, so let me see what it was. All right. Okay, it's called New Magazine. Let me
I like it.
so that was like easy, right? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and I'll put this in the chat.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. I'll have to just find the chat. I have to make this a little bigger so I can find the chat. All righty. Whoops. There we go.
I'm also popping in Nolcha's presentation for those of you who came late.
Oh, thank you very much. You got it. Did it come and drop some buckets or did you actually get it?
I got it in my email. It came.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one that I just posted the link to, it just opened. This is like hot off the press.
Way cool. Okay. Very nice. Well, okay, Nolcha, are we coming to the end? We're almost to the top of our hour here.
We're done. Does anyone have any questions or suggestions or?
Yeah, I do. How do you, how can you save all these links?
From the chat,
Yeah, can you? Is it possible?
Lisa, how do you do that? Do you know?
Or just
How do you
look at them
save
and
the
remember?
links that are in chat, you mean?
Yeah.
You can go into the chat and hover, let's see, there's a place to look at it.
Oh, I see. If you're in the
can
chat, you
save
cover
the
over
chat.
someone what they've posted. There's 3 dots there, and there's actions you can copy, quote, and delete. I don't know if there's a way to. I know I should get a copy of the chat.
Save,
Here it is.
it says save chat.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's it. If you go to save chat, you'll save everything in the chat. Thank you. I finally
okay.
found it. You're saying that.
So where can I access the chat from?
It'll
just
save
hate to-
the computer.
It'll be on your computer.
Why don't you try it, Pete, and try saving chat and let us know if you can find it on your
Oh.
computer.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Well,
On my iPad, I can, if I open after participants, there's 3 dots to open it up and the chat's at the top. I can't see anywhere to save chat on my iPad, but
Yeah, it's 3 little bars down at the bottom, Barbara.
Oh.
On my computer anyway.
oh, yeah, I'm on my iPad. I usually use Zoom on my computer, but I went to the garden to open this, so
I think it goes to your download. And because I remember I saved chats before, and then one day I went into the downloads and I said, what the heck are all these things? And I opened up, it was a saved chat. So by accident, so you might want to check that, but it's not necessarily going to give you this title of this event. It's just going to go, you'll have to recognize it by date.
yeah, I just looked at my downloads and I had done the save chat and it's not there. So it
Well,
went somewhere. I don't know where.
find all your poems. I have all my poems. No, that's different. All your poems. Oh, well.
Okay, people. Well, we are going to wrap this up for the day. If anyone figures out where your chat is downloading to, just email Nolcha and we'll figure it out.
Oh, wait, I did find out how to do it. It's wait, let me try this again. I did a save chat, and then when it says chat saved, it says show in folder.
You have to create a folder.
No, it actually creates it automatically. It's under documents.
Goodness, I probably have a lot of folders that I don't know.
Oh, maybe it's under.
It's
Maybe
actually
it's under
called
documents.
meeting. It's under documents. It's called meeting_saved_chat.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's there. Woohoo! Wow, I learn something new every day.
I love it. That's what we're here for, to learn something new every day, right?
Right?
I love it. Well, thank you, Nolcha, for sharing all of this lovely wisdom. Totally appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for showing up. It's so nice to have all of you here today. And I hope you go and enjoy the rest of your day. Visit us in the garden. I put the Facebook garden page there. And yeah, like Lisa said, we have calls for submissions happening. So, check it out and submit your poetry there. And follow Nolcha also on Facebook and in the garden, because she's got a lot going on. She's got her 30 day, we have a 30 day, 30 poems and 30-day anthology challenge happening in the garden. So that's something that's happening. But then we're talking about some other anthology projects coming up. So, but also check gardenneuropublishing.com for the ones we do have available right now. So that's going to do it for today, everybody. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Well,
coming.
it's been great being here. Thank
Very
you so
interactive
much,
today. Very
everybody.
appreciate it very much. All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.